All right, thank you for coming. Judy asked me to give a talk to fill in the little space, and I was real appreciative that she did because then I felt like I had permission to do anything. So this isn't exactly a talk. It's kind of what for me. It's to correct the record about a few things. There's 4 things, and it's not to criticize anybody. It's just to correct the record, because, and I'll explain why in each of the 4 cases, because it hurts my heart that they're not corrected. And so I want this to be on the Circle of Friends video website as that kind of like record, that little archive of these 4 facts. And they may not be that important to other people, but they're very important to me, and you'll see why. But I also want to thank the Avatar Mayor Baba's Circle of Friends for giving me the opportunity to give this talk. All right. So the name of this is Growing Up in the Baba Community, and that's a little misleading. It probably should be called For the Record or something like that. But let's get going. So first, I just want to talk about our family. We have really great photos, our family. This is my father's heritage, and this is in a photo album I have called Heritage. And those people in that picture, that's his relatives, and the little girl on the far right. Can you see that on the camera? The girl on the far right? That's my father's mother. And she grew up on a farm in Indiana, and she called herself an Indiana dirt farmer. And it's practically they're like cowboys. And she would talk about the horse and buggy. And there's the horse and buggy right over her head, right behind her. And anyway, the guy that I put there, that is my father's father, who would later marry that little girl. And he started out poor, but he ended up being a big tycoon, like a very rich man. The next picture is the heritage of Phyllis Ott, my mother. And these are the heritage that she would claim she's the most proud of is her father. Now, it's a kind of a blurry picture, but this is her father in France being decorated. He's the one getting the decorations pinned to him, the little short man. Yeah. And that's in the picture, that's her father and mother and her father's sister in the photo. And so he was kind of short and stocky, but strong. And he was the most decorated soldier in Chelsea, Massachusetts after the war. And when Mom was growing up, every Sunday there'd be a story, war story by her dad. War? World War I. Thank you. And so they were real proud because it was very unusual to have a Jewish war hero. But he was the quintessential Jewish war hero, and that picture is now in a museum of Jewish war veterans, that photo hanging, with the medals that he's receiving in the picture. So he's famous, and you can look up Hyman Silverman, boom, and it tells the outrageously brave things that he did saving lives. He got his medals for saving people instead of killing people. It's interesting. So now...
He wasn't a medical, was he?
No. But he would just pick up wounded men and carry them to base, like in the movie. What's that movie with Tom Hanks? And he carries people. No, but that has Tom Hanks in it too. The one where he's retarded. Forrest Gump.
There's another movie of a guy that saved all these lives by.
Right, and then there's a new movie by Mel Gibson. That's right, and that's what he does. But I think of him like Forrest Gump, because he was running back and forth in Forrest Gump. Anyway, that's Hyman. So that's...
Did he not shoot people? He just wanted to
Well, I think you had to run with a gun, but he said when they were running, when they said charge, you ran and you hoped you were running in the wrong direction. So I don't think he actually...
Running with the enemy?
Yeah, that's what he said. You run, and they spent a lot of time in World War I in France, just in trenches. Now, part of my story is this photo. I'm not in this photo. And that's part of the story. Because that's Myrtle Beach, 1958, Baba's last trip to the Mayor Center. And there's a lot of children in this picture. Hey, you doing, Dennis Wolterding? That's our illustrious vice president. Just came in. And in this picture, you see the little baby up there on Harold. That's Raphael Rudd. And I think this is that boy, Larry Crash, right? And there's others, but so that it had children is kind of neat. But I wasn't one of those children, unfortunately, and the reason's because I wasn't born yet. I was born the next year. But although Christina Riley was born at this time, and her parents were Baba lovers, and were at the Star Shine, she wasn't there because she was really young. And just another thing that Christina and I share is that we're from Baba families during Baba's lifetime, but we never got to meet him, either one of us. So this is the house. Christina mentioned this in her talk that she gave the other day. It was very famous. This picture of the house we lived in is from Life magazine. I took the color out to make the pictures sort of blend black and white. It's a church. It's a Dutch Reformed church from not sure what century. And we lived in there. It says, the Dutch Reformed Church, Otsai Family Home, 1958 to 1966. That's where we lived before we came to the center. Then, in 1966, we moved to the center. That's me with my dad, about 1966, and that's the barn. And we look like we're coming from the north, don't we? We're dressed like the north.
Well, where was your family?
From Woodstock, New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were in Woodstock
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So now, this picture is a little later, but this is us kids. That's my sister Mimi, my sister Leslie, Betsy, and me. And what I love about this picture, it's just there's no story. It's just we're just people. That's what I like about this. We're just
One, your sister too? There's three of them.
my three sisters. Two of them are from my mother's first marriage,
The older one.
and the little one on Mimi's lap is my full sister Leslie. Okay. And that's my dad at that time. This is in the 60s. This is before the Baba lovers really started coming, or about the time they first started. It's about 1967. Now, you know what he's watching?
TV.
Star Trek. And he once gave a talk at the library about Star Trek because he thought it was so like what Baba said about other planets, because Spock was the thing about mind, but he was a mix of heart and mind.
Yeah.
So, and see all the Life magazines underneath?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the way people were, as you all remember.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to tell you anything. And this is me at the 69 Darshan.
I know who that woman is.
Who is she?
That's Iris.
Okay. Do you know anything about her?
I know her pretty well. She died a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I heard that she was a little had problems.
Yeah.
And what I find funny is this is the only picture that there is of me from the 69 that I've ever seen from the 69 Darshan. But whenever I show anybody this picture, they always say, "Who's she?" But
Iris Young.
okay, thank you. You're always good for your comments. But I know that that's Don Euchre, and that's his wife and their daughter there, who was especially young to be there because you were supposed to be 7. I'm not sure she really was 7. You had to be 7 to be at the 69 Darshan. So this is about 1971. This is at the house in the center. And I just have myself quickly grow up here because my story isn't, I'm getting to what the talk's about. And just, this is me in 75 with my dad. And this is me in 1976. And that's the year that I graduated from high school in Myrtle Beach and went off to college. A lot of people go, I met you in the 70s and you were like a little baby. And I said, no, I was actually in college. It was not.
You're looking like such crap now.
It's age. That's how it happens. Bad living. Bad, wrong living. Anyway, this is a poster for a movie called Dazed and Confused, which just happens to be it's about the graduating year of 1976, which was my graduating year. And it's by a director my age named Richard Linklater. And I just include this because the picture kind of captures the kind of empty void of the times in which I graduated. Hi, Christina. So luckily, Christina, who just came, I went through this PowerPoint with her last week, so she's really not missed much. Now, we're going to get close to Baba. Now I'm getting to the points. Now, you missed what I said. I said that this is more than a talk. This isn't really a talk. This is a set of 4 things where I want to set the record straight. And I'm so pleased that the Avatar Mayor Baba's Circle of Friends is affording me a place to archive this PowerPoint about these things. But so we're going to get to those now. There are 4 things that the record is not right, and I just want to say what it is, and I'll say why I care. But when we start talking about the first one, or whenever we talk about our connection with Baba, you have to picture Baba right. That's why I have this picture. This is from Louis' film from 1967. Well, we moved to the center in 66, and our family came to Baba in 64, actually. But you have to picture Baba very weak. This isn't somebody who can really deal a lot with a family, and these changes that are still happening, but he's still taking care of them, but it's really hard for Baba to do. So at this time, in 1965, in the 66 family letter, it says this. Can you see that okay? Great. Baba wishes each of his Western lovers, old and new, young and old, men, women, and children, to write one letter direct to him. Now, all my life, I thought that I was one of those people that got to send a letter because I even remember writing it. And my dad said, one day you can, you'll go to the center and they can pull it out of the archive and show you your letter that you wrote when you were, 5 years old. Now, I wish Christina were here because that's exactly what happened to Christina. Erich Jeswal pulled out her letter and read it to her. But I never had that happen. And very recently, my mother was telling a story about something, and I realized, hey, there's something that's not adding up. And I went ahead and I was able to kind of trick her into admitting the truth. Read this letter. Can you read I'll read it. Dear Phyllis, it's from Audie. The copy of letter of Jean, of Jean of September 8th that you gave me was read out before Baba. Baba heard it and remarked that your and your children's personal letters to him, as wished by him in the last family letter, were not received yet, though Lynn's beautiful letter and letters from Tom and Yvonne Riley and their children were all received and read to him. Kindly, therefore, send in your personal letter addressed to Baba. Now, a strange thing happened to my mother. She only read the last sentence. The earlier part disappeared. And she thought it was asking for her letter, because it says, kindly, therefore, send in your personal letter addressed to Baba. So she thought, well, there's something she thought she had. Send him a letter, but she figured he was rejecting her letter. And anyway, she got very involved in why didn't he like her letter and why. So she eventually sent in another letter. And it all had, but this is the next thing I found. Phyllis got so angry when I pointed out what I had found, she threw all these letters at me and said, "You keep them." And and now they're at the MAC in Asheville. I hope that they do a good job
Can I ask
carrying
you what letters she threw at you? The ones
all these that I'm reading you.
that didn't get sent? No.
No. What I'm reading you, the records of correspondence with Mayor Baba.
Everything from Baba
And
and everything to
That's
Baba.
exactly right. Right. Now, can you see the bottom on the video? You can? Because I can go to another source and make it bigger. Can you see it okay? Okay. P.S. This is from Audie again. P.S. Dear Phyllis, I trust you have by now posted to Baba your and your children's personal letters to him as wished by him. So it's just going on and on. She never did send my letters, it turns out. And after 2 requests, they gave up. So, I mean, Baba had other things to do. All right, so now the next letter.
Do you think that the universe has been perturbed forever and ever because of that?
Please leave. I mean, I like you very much, but please don't. It's called heckling me.
No, it wasn't. I actually asked the
No, you actually, it's a heckling. I don't know why you do that.
No, Chris, what do you think you think there's any meaning into what happened?
It's a very ugly and mean thing to say. Are you implying there's none?
No, I'm implying there might be a great deal.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I want it to be known that my letter was never sent, and I just learned this. And I learned it from this detective work. So
If it had been me, that would have been a trauma for me.
it's not a trauma for me. It's not a trauma for me. You want to know the truth? Although you don't deserve to know it because you're heckling me. But, well, I'm going to tell you what the truth is. If we go back here, we see, no, I'm going the wrong way. Baba noticed that my letter wasn't there. Baba received thousands of letters. They were mounds of letters that were read to him. And after having mounds of letters read, he tells Audie, I don't see Chris and Leslie's letters. By the way, he got them from Betsy and Mimi because they were older. And he requests this. And then Baba sees it again. So Baba never, one of the things in the family letter, which I skipped, there's a footnote in the family letters. See, there's a little star, an asterisk. If you follow the asterisk, it says, do not expect a reply. But I got 2 replies from Baba. I got a direct acknowledgement that Baba was aware of me, and nobody else did. So if he got my letter, that's all that would have happened. Now, everybody knows that in 1966, the Rileys and us were trying to see if we could move onto the center. And we ended up doing it. And in these letters, I discovered something that was real important to me, but not to the universe, to me. This is about me. It's about my life and how I feel, okay? Now, it's not philosophy, it's personal, okay? Now, I always found it extremely ugly that the center would take the property from my family. And I was always, well, but that's what Baba wanted. You should trust what Baba wanted, but it's not what Baba wanted. It turns out, and I asked Judy if she'd read one of these letters. Would you read the letter?
Yes. Dear Len and Phyllis, your loving lines of the 3rd to me were brought to beloved Baba's attention. In reply to your wish to build a house on and settle in Myrtle Beach Center property, beloved Baba says that he has no objection to your doing it, provided it is practical from all points of view, considering the present circumstances and future possibilities of better prospects for your family as a whole, especially your children, and approved by Mrs. Elizabeth C. Patterson.
So Baba did basically say, you can live on the center if you consider your children, the future prospects of your children. What did they do? They didn't do that. Therefore, we really never got permission to live on the center. Elizabeth did directly address my mother about this, and she said, but don't you want to consider the children? And Phyllis basically said no. So, but if you saw the whole letter, the very last line is, but whatever you decide, you decide. So they went with that, but Baba didn't want that to happen. There's the letter and the proof. It was a condition of moving on to the center that our future prospects were considered. And Elizabeth actually did have an idea for it, which was that they would buy land conjoining Briarcliff, so there would be partially Briarcliff, partially the center, and therefore, or something like that. She could finagle it, but that didn't happen. So why this is important to me personally is because I was like, how could Baba do this? And when I found out Baba didn't do this, that was helpful for me in to go, that's really great. You know, when my parents went to India in 1965 together, they dropped us kids off with the Rileys. And they planned to go on a fun trip and just explore the world. That's true. And Baba said, I want you to go back to Woodstock to your children immediately. And Phyllis said, oh, well, Baba, we can't do that. And he said, why not? He said, well, we have excursion tickets. Baba was thinking of us kids when my parents weren't. So what all these stories say is the character of Mayor Baba is just like I always believed it was. And so, but part of all this is that kind of evidence. This isn't, and also it's not to put down anybody. We're all imperfect, but these were very big revelations for me, and they were all made in the last 10 years, like since I was, in Myrtle Beach recently. Now I'm going to I got 2 more stories, and then I'll just sum up, and I'll have some pretty pictures, some fun. But this picture is 1964. That's our house. Dad is walking up the hill, carrying a can of kerosene for the heater. And I'm going to tell a story, and we're going to hear the version that's in my mother's autobiography. And then we're going to hear what really happened. Or I'm not sure the order I'm going to do that. But, well, I'll tell first what really happened. First of all, that's me at that time. So, because sort of building the characters. The house is a character. This is where those events happened, in that house during the day when Mimi and Betsy were at school. Now, on the left are Mimi and Betsy and me, and at the ages we were at this time, okay, that this happened. Now, you see, Betsy's 12 years old. And Betsy came home from school, and she verified all these facts. I learned a lot of this from Mimi. Sorry, did I say Betsy? From Mimi. No, it's from Mimi. And Mimi is 7 years older than me, and I was in the room when this happened, but I don't have a memory of this, but I have memories of things surrounding it. But what happened is Phyllis was pregnant, and she really was angry. And they were smoking pot, they were drinking a lot, they were very misbehaved. And really there was no business being children around at all there at the time. Anyway, Phyllis took an overdose of birth control pills and secabarbital, which is a sleeping pill. And Lynn didn't know that because he's blind. And as she's starting to pass out, and I'm in the room, she lights her hair on fire, trying to light a cigarette, like this. And when her hair got lit on fire, then he realized something's wrong, and then that's when he called an ambulance. And she was taken to, I think, a state hospital, because they still had them then. Her doctor was Dr. Rosenthal. Do you know his first name? But you do remember that name. Dr. Rosenthal was a psychiatrist. Dr. Rosenthal then declared her unfit to be a mother, and he ordered her a legal abortion before Roe versus Wade and a hysterectomy. I remember picking her up in the car to get her.
But she was pregnant.
She wasn't pregnant when she was pregnant when she did that. And she also had Leslie, who was like 2. So for years, we all knew this story. Everyone in our family knows this story. Even my mom's sister, who passed away recently, Aunt B. Everybody knows that Phyllis went to the hospital and the whole story. My mother used to raise me with stories about the hospital. She said, it's really awful when you're in a mental hospital. They wake you up at 4 in the morning and then march you in to take your picture. How do you look at 4 in the morning? You look crazy. Like, she would tell me stories. I heard there were stories about the hospital, like Grandpa tells war stories, Mommy tells mental hospital stories. And she said, the doctors were talking about Lynn about the possibility of shock treatment. She told me that. But at a certain point, the story changed. And the story became that Lynn beat her within an inch of her life. And that's why she was taken to the hospital. And the wonderful thing about this is it fixed all kinds of problems and made Lynn into a monster, which he wasn't, and it never happened. He definitely never touched her. He couldn't have. He was blind. And it didn't happen. And Mimi came home right after this happened. She saw the pills. She knew they were taking, that Phyllis was taking. They were called Sobeys. Anyway, there's a condition. I talked to Faith Knox, who was a psychiatric nurse. And, she worked in the hospital that's in the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Isn't that amazing? But anyway, she told me that she doesn't think Phyllis lied about this. She said it's something called a confabulation. It's different. And so anyway, I looked this up. False memory syndrome is a condition in which a person's identity and interpersonal relationships center on a memory or of a traumatic experience that is objectively false, but that the person strongly believes occurred. So who she is and everything became oriented toward another story. That's what I think happened. I don't think Phyllis would ever deliberately lied. She's an honest person, but things happen besides lies. So I want to end this story, because I got one more to fix. I want to end this on a positive note, and I can. Because, remember this picture? That's the age that Mimi was when this happened. This picture was taken very shortly after all this happened, after Phyllis came home, because Phyllis suddenly, on her own, she woke up and she went to meet Baba in 1964. She went to meet Baba. We stayed in Myrtle Beach. Then we didn't go to the Riley's. He hired a babysitter. And we had our first Christmas because Phyllis was Jewish. And Buddy, her previous husband, was Jewish, and her previous husband before that, his name was Jerry, and he's Jewish. She had never had a Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, we were waiting for Phyllis to come back from India, and we got a telephone call. Now, Dad says, this is in the Glow. When the phone rang, Handel's Messiah was playing on the record player. And Phyllis said, I've tried to get in from New York, but we're snowed in. I'll have to see you tomorrow. But I want you to know, Meher Baba is God, and he loves you very much. So things changed very fast when she met Baba. Do you see? Again, this is a sweet story. And I remember that Christmas. And I remember the gifts, every single gift I remember. See the Christmas tree? Betsy and Mimi had never had a Christmas tree. Now this is the last story. It's about the Mortys. Dr. G.S.N. Morty is very famous. I personally know nothing at all about him, except from the story. This picture is taken from the East-West Gathering, 1962. He and his wife, I think he might have been an academic or something. Anyway, him and his wife could never have a child. And then there's some story about they finally did, and it was a real big deal, and I don't know their story really. Okay, but they finally had a child. And on the second trip to India with Phyllis and Lynn together, Phyllis saw them, met them, and saw their 6-month-old baby. And she turned to Lynn and she said, I wonder if that's my baby. Maybe Baba gave my baby from the abortion to the Mortys, which is kind of a healing, happy, positive thought, which shows the kind of thinking starting to change, right? From histrionics to trying to see how it works. Now, we all grew up knowing this story. I heard it all my life. I'm 62. The first time I heard it, I was 4. I've heard it all my life. It always was the same story. But recently, well, during the putting together of Lord Meher, somehow a mistake happened. And somebody, either the person who interviewed her, because there were Bao didn't do all the interviews for Lord Meher. He did the one, it's all recorded how it goes, and I did a whole long research paper on it. But a lot of them that he couldn't be there, he had other people go and do the interviews. But the way that it was heard was Baba told her that he gave that soul to the Mortys. But that's not true. She's admitted multiple times that's not true. But what she found out is that these women were coming to her and telling her, oh, I had an abortion once and that helped me so much in Lord Meher that Baba told you that so she didn't tell him. Again, she's trying to do maybe that's the right thing. I don't know. That's not a good moment to correct them on the facts, is it? So this became a myth. And I want to say something very important about it, and Christina will know exactly what I'm talking about, and not everybody will. Phyllis had and has, and a lot of people do, a misunderstanding of reincarnation as taught by Meher Baba. We assume that Meher Baba is talking about the reincarnation that we read about and assumed in other books, like in Theosophy, which is kind of like a soul leaves the fetus and then it travels and it kind of possesses another body, or leaves the corpse and possesses the fetus. That's called transmigration of the soul. This is from the God-Man, which its full title is The Life Journeys and Works of Meher Baba with an Interpretation of His Silence and Spiritual Teaching. And we all know how important this book is. And he says there, much confusion exists upon this subject. Reincarnation is not the transmigration of souls. which in its crude form is fantasy. Now, on the bottom of this video, I'm going to link to a video that I did about this subject, where I used a lot of quotes from Baba. But this is Baba's teaching about reincarnation. There's only one soul. That's God. There's only one. You're not part of it because it doesn't have parts, because it's not a thing. And souls are not things. And they're not in space and time and all this like is imagined in this transmigration of the soul. There's only the soul. The soul, also called self with a capital S. And that one soul has an illusion of being separate souls because of the sanskaras. They produce the illusion subjectively of a little piece of consciousness that it is a separate soul, but it never happens. So this thing of taking a soul from Phyllis's abortion and then putting it into the wife of Dr. Morty is, as Purdom says, fantasy. It's fine. It was well intended. It probably helped people, but it's a primitive kind of helping, like telling you a fairy tale. The truth is that's not how it happens. Baba never would have said this because it's not his teaching. His reincarnation is that you associate with the body and you disassociate at death. There's no going into the body. So I wanted to say that. And as I said, go ahead, please.
It's worth mentioning. Many people have a difficult time with this thing that you're trying to describe. And when we have a cat and the cat dies in our arms, we have a momentary experience of the cat with life and the cat without life. And so in the mind, this equation takes place that there is this thing that was there and now it's not there, because that's what we observe. And so it's easy to project that into a birth scenario. Well, it's not there, and then it is there. But that's not how it happens. As you say,
It's how it appears. It sort of appears, or feels.
the reason the form still exists when the cat dies is because of our perceptions. It is not because there is this thing called a cat body and the soul has left it. It's only there because we perceive, and our sanskaras about the perception of that cat persist.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with why a majzub seems to be, but is not in any way connected to their body.
Which is hard for us to
It's very hard to
conceive
understand.
of.
You have to read it a lot and read it over and over. So this idea of transmigration
Right.
is kind of a way of making sense of what you see.
It's
It
the way
is-
people always sort of understood
and it is
reincarnation.
not
But Baba teaches
at
a
all what
unique,
it
I
is.
say, a very special kind of reincarnation. It's not transmigration.
Not
of the soul.
transmigration.
Now, going back a little bit, in the original Lord Meher, I will read this. The page, original meaning the 1986 print version by Hermes, page 6296. Baba later consoled Phyllis and assured her not to grieve, explained to her that that child which she had aborted, he had passed on to G.S.N. Morty and his wife in Calcutta. This is the new Lord Meher. Because I talked to David, and he went back to the original records and he saw that it wasn't there. Somebody had put it in. And so he changed it to this. After meeting the Mortys and hearing the story, she wondered whether Baba had diverted the child that was, and that's like the diverted the child even, it's different, that was to have been born to her on to Dr. Morty and his wife in Calcutta. It was a consoling thought. Perhaps the two couples meeting at the railway station had not been by chance after all. And what a clever way to fix that, because it doesn't hurt anybody. She would like that a lot, because that's her original story and she knows it. By the way, when Phyllis is now has total dementia and doesn't know even who she is or who my sister is who takes care of her. But before that she disappeared, Leslie asked her, "Do you have any regrets from your, I think from your autobiography?" And Phyllis said, "Not that I can think of." And then she showed her a picture of the Mortys, and Phyllis went, one of the problems with this is that that child, who's now my age, and I don't know who it is, or if it's a boy or a girl, has had to live possibly with this crazy thing that he's this aborted soul, which is just really kind of grotesque and totally unnecessary. And so now the record is fixed. And hopefully the children of that man or woman, I think it's a man, will hear, what really happened because of this video. So that's why this is important. And by the way, the thing about the story of my father not beating my mother that day, my father never beat anybody. My father was really blind, but it's because what a horrible thing for him, for his legacy. Such a sweet pacifist man to go down in the history, but it won't. Because it's not in Lord, it's just in her book. Now, she said to my sister Leslie, but because it's so false, her book, it's written to sound all honest. It's very tricky. It's clever. But Phyllis said, but they accidentally put it in the fiction section. Ha 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 ha. That's what she says. The whole book's fiction. That happens all the time. I think there's a name for that genre. So here we are. I grew up with the Baba people, and I have this picture because something is interesting about this picture. This picture's not very old. I think I may have taken it. Half the people in this picture are dead. We're a dying community, we're a dying movement, and that's okay. And I've written about this in my blog many times, and I'll also link to my blog because I'll talk about that in a minute. So, that's where we are. I don't really care too much about that. I'm much more interested in the future than in the past. I'm going to die too. What are my interests? Well, my interests change from time to time, but for the last 3 solid years, I have been absolutely a fan of a girl who's now 18, who's a prodigy named Amira Willigagan, and she is an opera singer, a classical crossover singer, and some think one of the best in the world. And I just think that picture is beautiful. That's her at 15. And then, what else do I do? Well, I do videos, and I've done probably, 50 of them here at the Circle Center, and another 25 in the past. And I write books, and so and mostly my talks are about my books. And my books are about things, including what I just said about reincarnation, is in my second book. And they're based on Baba's teaching, but different. But they're entirely consistent with his teaching, but they're academic, of course. And I am interested in my daughter and my grandson, because what brings me joy, just like Amira, who the first time I saw her, she was 9, and now she's 18, and here's Megan. I recently, I asked Megan, I said, could you send me the music you listen to? I want to hear what you listen to, because I don't know. I don't even know where to find the music. And so she said, I put them in my blog. And that was kind of beautiful. So I have that kind of relationship with her. I'm no longer trying to tell her about the past. I'm rooting for tomorrow. And that last picture, the pretty picture of Baba when he was, I don't know where this was, but not Myrtle Beach. And I have the quote there. And it is a quote, I looked it up. He did say, not a leaf moves without my will. So all this was meant to be for all of us, because it was the best for all concerned. Now I'm going to show a few pictures and then it'll be done. This picture, that's my father. That's my father in 1964. That picture I was named after. That's why my name's Christopher. Because that is the name of that painting, which we still have, is The Courageous Voyage of Christopher Columbus. If you can't tell immediately, but it's the bow of a ship
Yeah.
cresting over a wave, and you can even see the cross on the sail, and you see the mast, but it's done in the style of de Kooning. And Lynn won a prize for this of $500, and he was very, very proud, and that was a lot of money back in '64. And Willem de Kooning, who's now dead, was a painter, and a very famous one, and he came to Woodstock, and he saw this painting in a show, but it was a multiple people show for the artists of Woodstock. And he stopped at the painting and said, "This is the only artist in Woodstock." Dad was always proud of that. But then Dad would say, "But of course I was totally influenced by de Kooning, so of course he liked my painting." So, now this is me and Leslie in 1966, before we moved to the center, like right before we moved. And why this is cute is because, interesting, you see those records on the left? Those are what are called talking books. Those are literature for the blind in the form of records. And he also has a record player, which you can also see, has a little edge of it as a speaker. And, you know, today, of course, they still have this material, but I guess it comes on, you know, digital somehow. Leslie gets this material. And anyway, we came to Myrtle Beach. That's me and Leslie again. And I'm not going to have pictures of y'all. They're pictures of us, because I don't really care about y'all that much. But me and Leslie playing with a dog we called Prince at the Bear Center in 1967. And this is me with my sister Betsy in the house in Myrtle Beach. In 1968, she's cooking. And that might be my last picture. No, this is one more. This is in the studio with Mom and Dad. And we're all working, and we're all working actually on the murals that are in the Pilgrim Center, the first smaller Pilgrim Center.
The dining hall?
The dining hall, and out and around the outside of the dining hall.
Yeah.
And I was privileged because I got to work on them too. I painted all the animals. But, and here, just Mom and I are goofing. And Dad, in order to paint, he had to have a really intense light, and he had to have these goggles that he made out of cardboard to keep out any peripheral vision, because although he had tunnel vision, light would come in and completely confuse his sight. So, that's the end. And thank you for coming.
Questions.
Okay, questions.
J Baba, give me her Baba.
What?
J Baba.
Thank you. J-Bob. Well, we could just stop.
Are you going to ask it? Are there any questions?
I don't really want any because
Oh, okay.
Dennis will have more heckling to do.
Okay.
He comes to my talks just to heckle me. That's Baba. He's an agent.
Well, I have a question.
Okay, you can
I
have
have
one.
a question.
Okay.
The name of this talk was Christopher Ott in the Baba community.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of Christopher Ott
Yep.
and his family.
Right.
So is there any other things you wanted to, just anecdotes or thoughts, reminiscences about growing up in the Baba community?
Oh, that's a great question. I had this microphone turned. I hope it'll work out. That's a really great question. I hadn't quite put it together like that. I kind of knew something was missing. I accept that picture of some old people on a bench, and half of them are dead. That would possibly be another talk someday, but I don't think I'll ever give that talk because I don't really have anything to say about the Baba lovers, except I do. Again, it's about me. The difference is I'm very different from them. I'm not at all like them. As a matter of fact, there are many things that I find beautiful, and you've seen my photo albums, and many of those photo albums, most, are something I find beautiful. That's what they are. And I have 3,000 pictures of Amira. I probably have 3,000 of Megan, who of course is beautiful, but I don't have pictures of Baba. Why is that? That's one thing I do not find beautiful. I do not find Baba beautiful, and that's just the way it is. I find his teaching to be the center and core of my life. It's everything. Like, if I could do something now, it would be to help people to understand his teaching better than they have in the future, or even in the present. But because I understand it so well, and so do you. But that's everything. And I have a big picture over my couch, and I have a nicely furnished place that I've been very blessed materially. But over my couch, I have a great big picture, and it's not a Baba. It's of the poster that's in Byrano from God Speaks, with the animals and the stream of life. And that stream of life is over my couch, and it's in a heavy, expensive frame that I had professionally framed in. And that's the centerpiece of my apartment. There is no Baba picture that's a centerpiece in my apartment. As a matter of fact, I have a very big picture, as you know, of myself. I look really great. That Greg Butler took. And I have a painting by my father of himself. But no, I don't find... I'm not in love with Mayor Baba. And I would even say I had a girl that I was in love with when I was 15. And I was so in love for so long, but she wouldn't fall in love with me. And then finally she said, Chris, I don't love you, and I can't say that I'll ever love you. Isn't it awful? But it was, at least it was, I kept hoping because it's so dumb. But that's kind of like it is with Baba. Baba, I don't love Baba, and I can't say I'll ever love him. I don't think it's necessary. I consider myself a jnana yoga. I practice jnana yoga. And in jnana yoga, it's a different path. And for most people, bhakti is appropriate. I have done bhakti, and the greatest practice you can do of bhakti is to silently repeat Baba's name. And I've done a lot of that. But I don't even worry. And the prayers, of course. But the highest one, as you know, it's actually the highest in infinite intelligence, is just that silent repetition of the name of the master. Thank you for asking that, though.
Well, I have, in addition to that,
Yeah.
I have a memory of your experience of the Baba community,
Wow.
and that is your parents' house on the Mayher Spiritual Center, and people coming for tea,
Yeah.
including me.
Right.
And it was, I imagine it was even more so for others. I came and felt like I could because I was an old family friend.
Right.
So an old family friend knocks on the door and you go, come on in. But somebody you don't even know, who just happens to be staying on the center and comes knocking on your door and you go, come on in. That's like, that's a very different
I
kind
want
of
to talk about that. People don't know this, and they probably shouldn't know it, but because this is this kind of talk, the way my parents looked at it is they had a business, and their business was to sell paintings, and those teas were to get people to buy paintings, and they deducted the cost of those teas from their income tax, because that was the business. And when you were brought through my bedroom to see paintings, you were being schmoozed to get your money. And that's a fact. And there's nothing to be ashamed of because you got to make a living. And Lynn was blind. And
You were stuck there.
and we were stuck there on the center. And they figured out a way to do a business, and where the groceries are the main, and the paint and the paint and the groceries are both same level. Probably the food is probably bigger expense than the paint. And so that's what that was. We were a store. And but Phyllis and Lynn loved it because they got very adored by all those people. Eventually, it made them become weak and stupid by the end, because that always happens. If you get too adored. So that's why Dennis comes, to keep me sharp. That's why you come to my talks to keep me sharp, so I won't become a weak. I'm just kidding. I just said mom and dad became weak and stupid.
Telling the absolute truth.
Yes, that's what I want.
And I love the absolute truth.
Yes,
So is
you do.
I walked in here totally forgetting your talk was today.
Oh.
To bring the camera that just arrived from Amazon. So it was totally adventitious that you happened to be talking when I came. But I'm
You
certainly
kind of
gonna
looked
sit-
like that. You looked a little like,
I'm
what the
certainly
heck's
gonna
going
sit
on?
down, realize, oh wait, that's right. He said he was going to talk, and I forgot when it was. So that's the whole truth of it.
I love you. You know it.
And the truth is so much more interesting than anything you can
100%.
make up.
100%. That's why the Circle Center is so cool. Because I think that our outsides are like our insides here, aren't they? I think so. Do you have something to say, Al?
No, I was just waving to Judy.
Okay.
Well, on that,
Yes?
I think you and I share a common experience, and that is that there was a certain degree of sacrifice that was made in order to support the growth of a Baba community. So I know in my home, a certain amount of our family life and any kind of ambitions that a normal family might have were sacrificed in order to be supportive of a, Baba prospects or, people who may or may not continue
Yeah,
to
but
stay
in their
off drugs.
By the way, I want to say something. Let me turn the camera back over here because it reminds me of something. Some of these letters were clipped, or I read the part that had to do with me, our family. But on two of them, if you keep going, it segues straight into and about the Rileys. And sometimes it was like, and everything we just said applies to the Rileys too, including the one about the future prospects. Okay? Because you were going to move onto the center too. So you gave your talk a couple weeks ago, and I was startled. I said, I was like listening to my own head, listening to you, and you had the same experience. Now, it's interesting because I always thought it's not just that you and I are similar. We're very close in age, and we're both very intellectual, and serious, really. But our parents are very similar, and they played this really similar role, and that role is very clear. Anybody can see it. The people that were coming were hippies. Our parents were not hippies, but our parents could talk to them in a way that the Winterfelds, Adele,
Because of drug use.
yeah, and also they read some of the same books, that kind of stuff. But another one's like the Hernandezes. They couldn't have done that. They could not. They just couldn't play this kind of halfway. You come in here, we'll be able to keep up and surpass you on anything you want to talk about, and you'll be entertained. And then you'll find out that Mayor Baba isn't just like every other thing. It's not a schmob thing. It's got depth. And so that they both did that. And I didn't know it about your family. I thought it was just ours. But it makes sense that they would have seen Tom the same way. Wow, a cool older man artist, to them, that was a thing. All right, I want to stop. Okay? Jai Baba, thank you for coming. Bye-bye.